This is Martial Arts Explorer, exploring practical techniques as derived from classical forms of all styles. I'm Scott Combs. Senior Master Instructor Chris Thomas holds senior rank in both the Isshinryu and Ryukyu Kempo systems. He has written for the major martial arts magazines for more than 30 years. He has co-authored a number of books on pressure point fighting with Black Belt Hall of Fame instructor George Dillman. He also heads the Kyushojutsu Kenkyukai, whose annual gathering is held in Madison, Wisconsin. We were invited to tape the seminars and jumped at the opportunity. We shot about 8 hours of instruction and demonstration. For the next couple of shows, Master Thomas will be working on stances, our foundation. Now, if you think your horse stance is perfect, you can skip this show. But if you think there may be room for improvement, well then, you'll probably get something out of this.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to do two versions of horse stance. One is large frame and one is small frame. And I'm going to just try to help you find what will be your perfect stance. Now first let me describe large frame. What we do is we ask a simple question. What is your inseam? From floor to crotch, that line. What we would do then is if you were to tape measure that, you're not going to do this now, but you have a sense of it, kind of a rough sense of what your inseam might be, about how, and you know, you can have a friend go like this or something, a friend. A trusted friend. What you would do is, if you were to put two dots on the floor, separated by the inseam, your inseam. Now, this is not the seam of your inseam of your pants, because that's actually different, because it's adjusted for shoes, but literally floor to crotch. Or another way to measure that is to measure the length of your leg, which is floor to hip bone. You can use that as well as a reference point, but inseam is a good one. You put two dots on the floor, and you're going to put bubbling well, and you would start by using bubbling well on that point. So we would start in this kind of, what you end up with is a kind of equilateral triangle. So that's step one. Step two is make sure your feet are pointing directly forward. Very often people's feet are open, or you'll see one foot open, kind of angled off, directly forward. I use my fourth metatarsal. Okay, that's the fourth bone of my foot. Sometimes instead I use the outside edge of my foot, but in a horse stance you would never use the inside edge of your foot, because that actually starts to move you into an open leg position. So this is why, by the way, if for example I use the outside edge of my foot, I have straight lines here, outside edge of my foot, I can measure this. By the way, you know how I learned this? This is how I learned stance work. I was in a basketball court, and there were lines, and I used them. That was how I learned stances. That's where I really started figuring it out. Oh, look at these lines. So I got lines here. And if you're lucky enough to get on the wood, you have lines. If not, you've got a repeating pattern in the carpet you can use as a reference point. Now I'm using the outside edge of my foot. If you look, it appears that I'm pigeon-toed as a result. So this is why sometimes a horse stance, some people think of it as a pigeon-toed stance, because somebody said, line up the outside edges of your feet, and it created that illusion. When you use the fourth metatarsal, the fourth bone of the foot, then it looks more straightforward. So that's step one. You find that width. Here's step two. Bend your knees straight forward. Now, if you were to look in a mirror, you'd see that there's a kind of plane, an angle here, straight down my leg. I want to bend my knees straight forward so that the angle doesn't change. It doesn't bow out and it doesn't cave in. That's step two. Step three, we're all going to do this, so I'm just telling you. What people tend to do when they start to crouch down is they go, oh, the muscles of my legs hurt. So they kind of shift their weight back, and they kind of do this. And then I say, get lower. Lower. Drop that stance. Oh, my legs are killing me. So what we do is, when we get down here, we actually arch our back, which is wrong, but you arch your back. Get down as low as you can. Now see how my butt's sticking out? And then when you get down there and you're like, I can't go any lower, then you have to push your hip forward, and what you'll feel is your knees go straight forward. The last step is to figure out how much you have to push your knees out or how much you have to draw them in. And you're going to be feeling, you have to do this inside yourself, you're feeling your own ankle bones. You're going to feel how your ankle bones line up, and then the other thing you're going to feel is what's happening with your feet. If I push my knees out too much, the inside edges of my feet start to pull up. You can kind of see the stress in my feet. And even my shoes, you see these little stress lines in my shoe. That's from my foot is losing contact on the inside. But if I go the other way, then my foot gets flat and collapsed. And the arch of my foot slams into the floor, and I'm flat-footed. So you get this little bit of pressure, so you've got an arch. The pad of your foot is solidly stable to the floor all the way around. You should feel no torquing stress on the knee, no torquing stress on the ankle. The muscles of your leg should hurt a little bit or a lot. If you want to really get fancy, once you get down here, tighten your pelvic floor and your anal sphincter, but if you don't want to worry about that, don't. Just make sure your butt's not sticking out. Or I go, tuck your hip under, drive forward. There you go, nice and straight. And people go, I'm getting tired, I'm getting tired, I'm getting tired. No, no, don't lean, get nice and straight. I'm getting tired. Okay. Oh, now I'm not so tired. Nice and straight, right? So this is the other way in which people try to take the stress off. You have to find that perfect straight up and down point. So now I'll do this facing each direction so you can kind of see this, and the camera will get it from the side. Right? See the parallel feet, a roughly equilateral triangle between my legs. Bend my knees straight forward. The angle doesn't change. Then I have to make the tiny adjustment, which for me is very slightly out. It's very slightly out. There it is. Now I want to get lower. I'm still learning this, so I go butt out, sink down, tuck under until I'm straight. There I go. Okay? Show you. Equilateral triangle. Feet straight forward. Bend knees, so this is very flat. Let my butt go out so I get lower. Tuck my hip under until I'm straight through from conception 20, or governor 20, through conception 1, straight line through the ceiling. Okay? I'll talk you through it, but you're going to try that. So everyone up. Some of you went, oh, there's no stress on my knee anymore. Oh, there's no stress on my ankle anymore. And that's really what this is about. If you just stand and go, huh, like that, right, with your legs straight and your feet pointing straight forward, now your feet are just a little wider than your own shoulders. If you just did that, your feet are just a little wider than your own shoulders. This is the small stance. So the big stance is based on inseam as a reference starting point. The small stance is based on width of shoulders. Or actually, the way I put it is shoulders and or hips. Whichever is wider, that's the one you use as a reference. Okay? So sometimes people like, I remember my first sensei, he was pear-shaped. He just was, you know. So his hips were wider. So if that's the case, then okay. But what you do is you figure out what that width is. That becomes the lines. And your feet would go just outside the line. So the inside edge of your foot would be the width of your shoulder or the width of your hip, depending on which of those was wider. Then your body, and this is an easy way to find it, because most people, will, if they just kind of go, huh, without really trying too hard or thinking too hard, you'll be just about that size. You make sure those feet are pointed straight forward. You bend your knees so your knees go straight, because look, see how your knee is bent? See how your knee joint is? So everyone goes horse stance like this. They push their knees out. But when you're standing, you don't push your knees out, right? Because if you do, you roll up on the outside edge of your foot. Okay, I have seen people standing around like this, But when you're actually just in a comfortable position, if you're in this position, your foot is flat, your ankle is in a good line, your knees, there's no stress on your knees, so you wouldn't push your knees out here, you just have your legs locked. So now when you bend them, you don't change anything. All it changes is now your knees bend and you also are bending at the hip, but you're not pushing your knees out. Nothing else changes, you just go straight down. It's only once you get down here, then you just play around. Now, the shorter stance will not go as deep. So on the shorter stance, we don't do this stuff to try to get depth. You just go down until it feels comfortable and make sure that you feel centered on your feet and just concentrate on that contact. So try that. I'm going to come over and catch the people I missed. You can do a lot with crummy stances, but you have to work a whole lot harder. But if your stances are good, whether you're using a small frame or a large frame, If the stance is stable and strong, then your technique will just be better. So we're going to take a little bit of time now and do technique without hands. Patrick, can I borrow you for a second? This won't hurt a bit. So, for example, let's say he's pushing on me. He's pushing on me, okay? So as he pushes on me, I don't get to use my hands. See, that's my shoulder? And now I need to do some stance work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, catch, lock, settle in, try to find a nice structure, okay? Now, to make this really easy, what I'll do is you'll partner up, and your partner will just push like this. And then after you've done them harm, then they'll push this way. So it's two hands, but which leg they step forward. And the response is, when that comes in, you just kind of turn and just sort of roll your shoulder to just kind of move that off the line. You can pivot right here on your feet if you want this way. You can just halt like this. Then half step in to hook their lead leg. Then adjust, which will often mean half step back and then sink. Now, this is the bottom half of some really effective fighting stuff, but we're just, by itself, when would you use this? You're in handcuffs and they're trying to push you in the car.
That's not advisable.
As you will learn later this evening, that is not advisable. All right, so again, just to show you, your partner's going to push with one leg forward. So I go, whoa, whoop, I got inside, I wanted outside line rats. Darn. I meant to go to the other direction. You stepped with the wrong foot. Remember, it's always the Uki's fault. No, you know, it's the same technique. I went, oh, he has the other leg forward. Do me a favor, step with that leg this time. The way you're supposed to. So you just turn here, little shoulder roll here, step behind. You really have to hook this foot. Adjust to a stance. I'm right now using the smaller horse stance. I just bend my knees straight down. Okay, that's all we're doing. Then other direction, other side. Then push, push. Then it's your partner's turn to push, push. So right side, left side. You're going to go back and forth a few times. Go. Very, very simple. Well, it'll be, and we're going to keep it, you know, because we're just starting the evening and we're working on fundamental structure issues. But what I want you to do is, he's going to push the same way. Had to check and see which leg he had forward. Fool me once, shame on you. You know? All right, so as you do this same motion, this time you get to bring your hands involved. I want you to do a hand pass. Hand pass means I deflect with, in this case, because I'm moving in this direction, I'm going to deflect with my left, and then I'm going to grab on with my right. So he goes to push, I deflect left, grab right. And if you want to pay attention to my footwork, I'm just doing this to get out of the way. I'm just kind of scooping my leg out of the way. Lock in here on the leg. Get ready to settle down. Then as you lock this way, I just want you to take your hand and just turn the head the other direction. All we're doing is creating two directions in the body. This is a very small thing. He's not falling down yet. Yeah, that you can do later. I just want you to just begin to control the body, but very important, I want you to turn their face away from you. All right? So again, it's going to be push. Okay. Push. Okay. My turn. You know, okay. And so you're going to right, left, right, left. So now let's just, again, this is a very low grade. Please understand. I'm saying this for the web, you know, right? So some person podcasting going, well, that's not a very effective technique. This is more, right now, we're operating in that basic foundational level of principle. We're not even close to, wait till tomorrow when you're beating the crap out of each other, right?
Different uke tomorrow. Right?
That's right. I'm using somebody else tomorrow. So we're in the same setup. He's pushing, I hand pass, I parry. Now, as you come in here, I want you to do, watch this. I'm gonna start with my palm, but then, see how my elbow is bent? I'll do it in every direction so you see this. My elbow is bent and it's on top of his shoulder. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to rotate my hand, but at the same time I rotate my hand, I'm going to lower my shoulder and my elbow. Okay? So now we'll come over here. What you need to see is that I'm using a little bit of leverage here. Right? So here I am. This is not a comfortable position. And actually from here, what I actually think I want to do is turn this way and do, from here, my brain says, do agi uke. which is to say, grab something and turn like that. But what I don't necessarily remember is that I have this other option, which is I'm just going to turn my palm over and lower my elbow. Can you see how it's my elbow touching here that's making the difference? This is where the work is being done in my upper body. I come this way, I come here, there's my elbow, I'm going to turn my hand on his face. See that motion? I'm actually pushing his shoulder forward and his head back. Oh, and I'm dropping on his leg. And then we'll face this way so they can see. Yeah, so he comes here, right? Come this way. Here it is. See it? Now I want you to see something. Watch what his body does. Now, watch what his body does. Okay, see? What his body does, what his body does. Do you see that's the same reaction? So I'm doing two things that produce the same result. I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. Now, of course, I don't know any kata where you go like that. I mean, that's stupid, because what you should, everyone knows you want to wind up first. So I don't know any kata where you just do that. I'm not going to mess with front stance. Here's why. It takes too long. Front stance is very complicated because it depends on what you're doing. So there's actually two completely different front stances. And they actually, and this isn't even counting large frame and small frame, okay? And they have to do with what are you doing. There's a kind of front stance which is designed primarily for positive motions, like punching. And so it's typically you go here and then you go, I'm going to hit you really hard. Boom. There's another front stance which is designed primarily for pulling and using the lead hand. And especially for grappling. And that one actually looks more like this. Now see, this stance and this stance ain't the same stance. So I don't have time to take you through that. But I can tell you this. If you understand horse stance, really get it. And by the way, I recommend now, that you've spent this little bit of time doing horse stance, that you now practice bathroom karate.
Toilet or shower?
I recommend toilet. But you're at work, you gotta, excuse me, I gotta go pee, I had too much coffee this morning. You go in there, right? You've done your business, washed your hands, and there's no one else in the restroom because they're all at their desks and you're going back to your desk. But there are mirrors, so you go. Okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? If you walk into if every time you walk into a bathroom, you did one stance, one horse stance, or one cat stance, or maybe, if I do a small frame, this is what I do a lot. I go. Get that hip timing right. That's what I do. I'm always working on that stuff where I'm like. When I was young and could kick high, I would do that too. I'd be like I ever put one up there. Okay, right about here. But I can't even do that anymore, I'm old. Bathroom karate, do bathroom karate, seriously. Just a stance here and there. But take the time to go adjust, adjust, adjust. Yep, that's it. Or a small frame. Yep, that's it. Takes what, 10 seconds?
As always, if you want to try these techniques at home, use caution. You want to make the technique work, but you don't want to injure your friend. And we're not responsible for any injuries or household breakage that might occur. Next time, we look into cat stance. We love getting email from you. Send it to explorer@martialartsexplorer.tv. For Martial Arts Explorer and Michael Kleinepier, I'm Scott Combs.